What the hell is wrong with Amy Schumer? You know, besides her being so unfunny that her movies make you literally want to kill yourself. Literally. Literally kill yourself. I wasn't planning on making another one of these videos, at least not anytime soon, but in spite of myself, I ended up watching the Amy Schumer special, and my god was it bad. You guys want to see the first joke on that special? Let me just play it for you.
I don't know if you guys know this, but this past year I've gotten very rich, famous, and humble. Thank you.
And you know what's great about this joke? It's stolen. The first joke on her TV special on Netflix is stolen. After she had been accused of stealing jokes multiple times, she started her new TV special with a stolen joke. Now this joke isn't stolen from anyone specific, it's just the most tired, overused joke in the fucking comedy industry. I've heard this joke when I was in 3rd grade. And as I was watching this, I sort of thought back to myself watching the Dave Chappelle special just a few days ago. And the only thing this comedy special and the Dave Chappelle special had in common is a joke that Amy Schumer stole from Dave Chappelle. In fact, Amy has stolen a lot of jokes in her career, like really a lot. All you really have to do is go to YouTube and look up Amy Schumer's stolen joke compilation, and you'll find hours upon hours of side-by-side comparisons of jokes that Amy Schumer has stolen from people. This includes people like Dave Attell, Matt TV, College Humor. And some people have tried to defend her by saying that these jokes aren't stolen, that Amy's simply very unoriginal, as if that's somehow a defense. But there's one problem with that argument. Almost all of her jokes that she stole were from people she either wrote with, wrote for, opened for, or told people that she's a big fan of from the time period that she stole the joke.
Fucking goddamn. Goddamn fucking pepper.
Oh my god.
But you know what's worse than stealing people's jokes? Stealing them and then telling them wrong. Amy Schumer has ruined every joke she ever pilfered by adding redundant moralizing to every punchline. When Amy Schumer stole one of Patrice O'Neal's jokes about unusual sex acts, after she told the entire joke, practically word for word, she added to the punchline a boring speech about how that joke, if it had happened in reality, would be rape, without adding anything of value or any comedy to the joke itself. In another example, she stole an entire bit by another female comic about how if she was rich, she would just pay a chef to knock the food out of her hand before she eats it so she wouldn't get fat. Amy Schumer stole this entire bit and used it to make a skit on her show. But after the entire skit is over, the only thing that Amy Schumer added is her turning to the camera, looking directly at the audience and saying, "But wait, isn't that violence against women?" If it wasn't for the canned laughter, you'd be able to hear fucking tumbleweeds rolling in that studio. And you know, I have a theory about why Amy steals so many jokes. It's not because she can't write her own jokes, even though she obviously can't. It's because one day, many years ago, she was sitting backstage at the gig of some much better comedian who she could never hope to be as good as. Someone she was supposed to open for, but wasn't getting paid for. And she was sitting there, listening to their jokes, and suddenly she heard a joke she doesn't disagree with. But instead of confronting them and telling them why they shouldn't be telling these jokes, she sat there and she kept her anger in her petty little heart for years and years. And finally, her chance came. Many years after that, she finally got her shot. She got up on stage, told that exact same joke one more time, and then added a boring moralizing speech to explain to her audience why they shouldn't laugh. Not that they would have laughed, because Amy ruins every joke she steals. And you know, all of this moral grandstanding is really rich, coming from a woman who once made jokes about how all Mexicans are rapists, and defended one of her comedy writers after he attacked rape victims and told them that they're lying about rape, even though there was no evidence that they were. But you know, when Amy is defending rapists, she's not really defending rapists. The person she's defending is herself, because she is a rapist. Seriously, all of the signs of a sexual predator are right there, especially her treatment of Bradley Cooper, who she obsessively stalks, including her appearing at award shows and yelling his name, stalking him, dedicating about half her comedy show to her delusions about how he must be in love with her, making up weird bullshit stories, and telling them bitterly to various interviewers about how he ignored her, even though this is either a delusion or he ignores her because she fucking stalks him. And then when he confronted her about it, she tweeted out a tweet about how they're now engaged as a joke. So if I was Bradley Cooper, I'd call the police. Amy Schumer is going to rape you, Bradley. But okay, that's not rape, right? I mean, I still haven't proven that Amy's a rapist. That's just gross and creepy, right? Well, that's right, but she actually also, she raped a guy. That's right, Amy Schumer raped a guy. In 2015, Amy Schumer was invited to give a speech at a gala about women empowerment, and she told a story about how, when she was in college, a drunk guy she had a crush on came into her room and had sex with her, even though he was so unbelievably hammered, he repeatedly lost consciousness and she had to get him to keep going. So, this is rape, right? And the only reason she even did this is out of hope that he would hang out with her later and people would see them together and think she's cool. So that's really a new level of being a rapist. Not raping someone because you want to rape them, but raping because you think, what can you get out of raping them? And by the way, does anyone else find it really creepy that in the movie Trainwreck, Amy Schumer has a sex scene with John Cena? Let me just clarify. In the movie Trainwreck, the movie that Amy Schumer wrote and starred in, Amy Schumer wrote a sex scene with John Cena and Amy Schumer. If I was a guy who wanted to shoot up a movie theater and then kill himself, I think the Amy Schumer sex scene would be the one where I would pull my gun out. Just saying. But Amy doesn't resolve herself to just sexually harassing random unconscious dudes and other movie stars. No. Amy has much higher hopes for herself. She has much higher standards because Amy is constantly busy with sexually harassing the entire nation. See, Amy Schumer has what I like to call the Lena Dunham problem. It's what happens when a fat, unattractive, deeply insecure comedian is so sexually frustrated that the only way for them to get their sexual kicks is by exposing them to anyone and everyone, whether they consent to it or not. Amy Schumer and Lena Dunham are like a creepy guy at a children's playground wearing a trench coat in August. Especially Amy, who is constantly appearing on magazine covers half clothed, in spite of the fact she is deeply unattractive. And the same thing happens after every time. First of all, there's a lot of laughing and vomiting, and then there's controversy. For example, the time she appeared on the Entertainment Weekly magazine cover. After the magazine came out, Amy decided to tweet out an unphotoshopped picture of herself, the unphotoshopped version of that cover. And then, after she realized everyone is laughing at her and calling her fat, she deleted it. Then she decided to try to put a positive spin on it by saying on Twitter, "Thanks Entertainment Weekly for not airbrushing me." Even though someone saved the picture and when you look at them side by side, you can see that they definitely really heavily airbrushed her. In spite of every woman's magazine trying to take her side and running with this narrative, no one was really fooled by this. On two other occasions, first in the Glamour magazine, and secondly in the Pirelli calendar when both of them did their body positivity issues that revolved around really fat and really ugly female celebrities. But in the case of Glamour magazine, this completely backfired because Amy Schumer immediately backstabbed them and started complaining they put her in the plus size category. She then continued by saying that she's a size 6 and has no plans of changing that, even though you know what they say about plans. And if this strikes you as both being a hypocrite and an asshole, you have no idea. Because Amy also has this interesting habit of bullying her own fans. The most famous of these cases was the time when a teenager took a picture of her and tweeted a joke about her being a slut. And despite the fact she built her entire career on calling herself a fat whore, she responded with righteous indignation, getting her fans to attack him and implicitly threatening to call his dad. But that was just one time, because the second time she did this was when some guy came up to her and took a picture of her in the street. She immediately put the guy on blast, ending with him and his family and his 2-year-old daughter getting a bunch of death threats. The third time Amy bullied one of her own fans, was when she called one of her own fans to the stage after asking if there are any Trump supporters in the crowd. After this guy raised his hand, she called him on stage and began implying that he is a racist Nazi because he voted for him in an incident that ended with the entire crowd just fucking walking out on her. The fourth time Amy Schumer bullied one of her own fans is an incident I remember, but I can't find any evidence of online because it is impossible to find an article about a specific incident where Amy Schumer bullied one of her fans inside the never-ending ocean of other articles about other incidents when Amy Schumer bullied one of her fans. That's how bad this is. And I'd like to point out that Amy Schumer never apologized to that guy who got death threats because of her, even though when she made a joke about Ryan Dunn dying, instead of apologizing, she responded by attacking Steve-O, at whom she made the joke, and then basically implicitly demanding he apologize to her because his fans were sending her death threats and she was crying about how awful it is. I guess when the death threats go to one of her fans and his little daughter, it's completely fine. Oh, and before I forget, one more thing that's tangentially connected to this is the time where Amy Schumer was paid to do an hour-long show and then she came late, left early, did 30 minutes, and refused to pay people their money back. That's how she treats her fans. Harassing them, calling them out online, getting her fans to annoy them, sending them death threats, and refusing to give them money back after she fucks up her own show. Absolutely amazing. But let's go back for a second to that one kid she attacked for calling her a slut, because if you're at all familiar with her comedy, you'll see what the problem here is. Her entire career is built around her being a promiscuous cow. Every joke she ever told, which isn't stolen from someone else at least, is about her being fat, being a whore, and being disgusting. Amy is from that breed of comedian, of specifically female comedian, who has nothing to offer besides their vagina, an entire persona based around doing shock humor and doing shock humor while being a woman. Amy herself has a show called Inside Amy Schumer. Samantha Bee called her show Full Frontal, and Lena Dunham just went with Girls, because without female solidarity, no one would watch it. Not that they did anyway. Amy's book has a picture of her naked on it, and you know what her fucking latest movie is called? It's called Snatched. 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 And you know, most of her comedy is like that. Any joke that isn't stolen isn't funny. And any joke that is stolen isn't funny because Amy isn't funny. Half the show revolves around her making silly faces, dumb noises, and weird gestures to the sound of no one laughing. Every single punchline is either I'm a whore, I'm fat, and I'm gross. And though everyone can see that she's a whore and fat, let me just focus on the gross part, because it's very important to show everyone she is in line. Here's a picture of Amy. Gross, right? Pretty disgusting, but you haven't seen it all yet. Let's zoom in for a second. Keep zooming in. Closer. And it's a fucking booger. There's a booger in her nose. For the love of God, Amy, just get some Kleenex. Okay, but that's enough of making fun of how gross Amy is. Let's get back to the point. Let's talk about her most recent controversy, which is the Netflix incident. The Netflix incident is her latest fucking stand-up special, which was so bad it got 1-star ratings across the board. No one liked it, and instead of taking responsibility, Amy got on the internet and began whining about how the only reason she's getting 1-star ratings is because trolls and alt-right people are conspiring against her. In fact, it got so bad that Netflix ended up deleting their entire star system and replacing it with thumbs up and thumbs down to hide the fact everyone hates Amy Schumer. So at this point you have to be asking yourself, how does an unfunny, untalented joke thief who always acts like a cunt get ahead in the industry? Well, that's simple. A combination of cheap provocation, pity, and nepotism. We already talked about the cheap provocation part when we were talking about nudity. The way that Amy will take off her clothes for any and all reasons in hopes that men with no standards and no self-respect will pick up her book or tune into her show in hopes of seeing some boobies. The rest is a combination of people either feeling sorry for her or trying to make some sort of point about being fat and a feminist, which is just another way of saying feeling sorry for themselves. Glamour magazine and the Pirelli calendar because they decided to do an ugly chicks issue. Well, that's not what they called it, but that's what it was. And when she was on the issue of Entertainment Weekly, they put her on the front because they wanted to make some sort of point about feminism, but they still ended up having to airbrush the shit out of her because if people saw the way she actually looks, they wouldn't buy the fucking magazine. In the end, even Netflix had to step in for her out of pity and save her from her own reviews. And this is where nepotism comes in, because there is no way a movie as bad as Trainwreck can get made unless you're friends with someone who works at Sony. In this case, the infamous Amy Pascal, the woman who ruined the Ghostbusters remake and at one point actually wanted Amy Schumer to star in it, and also wanted Amy Schumer to star in the Barbie movie as Barbie. So you can sort of guess by yourself what the motivations here are. In the end, Amy is not a good comedian. Her entire career only started when she won the second season of Last Comic Standing, and that was only after she was rejected from the first season because she just wasn't funny enough. Her TV show suffered steadily declining ratings until the fourth season finale was watched by almost no one. The show was picked up for a fifth season, but at the moment it looks like that season will never be made because they're in no rush to start producing it. I have a feeling that they're just trying to quietly sweep this thing under the rug. What you are left with is an unfunny, unpleasant individual that routinely uses their position to bully people who criticize them, a sexually frustrated sexual predator, and a person who owns their entire career to the fact that a bunch of fat feminists decided they wanted to prove that one of their own could be successful, but when they realized they couldn't find someone like that, they decided to just pick one and make them successful regardless of the fact of them being talented or not. Amy Schumer is a living contradiction, a stand-up comedian who can't make jokes, can't take jokes, and can barely stand up.
Yeah!